Hello and welcome to Rabbi Rafi Mollot, everybody's Rebbi, random YouTube live stream about nothing in particular. Feel free to join in the studio, although the link to join in the studio would be in the email that I sent, would also be on my YouTube community page or in the WhatsApp group. So if you have access to any of that, you can join now. If not, I'm going to put it in the chat, the live chat. If people would like to join in studio, you could find it now in the live chat. The link to do that. And Sandy's here. Hello, Sandy. We have Cliff right now in the studio. And tonight's topic is no topic. Last week, we discussed what we might choose to study as a series going forward. And if people want to contribute more suggestions to that, they can. Those doors are not closed, but that doesn't have to be the topic of tonight. I feel like we talked it out well last week. I will talk about a little bit where my leanings are. I was talking to Cliff before the show, and I'll share with you some of my thoughts, but I really welcome anyone who would like to discuss another topic or ask a question on a Torah topic to utilize this venue and this forum to do that. We have an hour to just discuss. We don't have an agenda. We don't have to get through a text. We don't really have an hour because I always start a few minutes past the hour. For those who don't know why, it's not because I'm just really bad at being punctual, which might also be true. But for those who are in the studio, there's a little bit of pre-show chit-chat. The VIP pre-show chat. So, and then after a few minutes of small talk, we get into the live stream. So, so we have the rest of the hour, I should say, for that. Linda Hill's asking an excellent question. Are you going to continue the divine code? So a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I did start teaching the divine code, which is a book of law covers the Noahide laws very thoroughly. I did about 20 installments. Then I had to pause because my summer break was over and I went back to my full-time teaching and it just got away from me. So here's my thought. I am on winter break now. I can't promise, but I do hope over the break I'll be able to add some more installments as time allows. But another thought that I have is that once a week, in addition to Sunday night, I'm going to add an additional night where I will do a live stream, and I may continue that series during that live stream. So that may be forthcoming. It's something that I intend to do, but as they say in Hebrew, "Emor ma'at v'aseh harbe." Say little, do a lot, not the other way around. Don't say a lot and do a little. So I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So, but if you're asking, I do have in mind to continue on a, instead of like an almost daily basis that I used to do, maybe on a weekly basis, and we'll dedicate the whole hour as opposed to I was doing like half hour sessions. Maybe we'll do 1 hour once a week. So I hope that. Now, of course, it really helps. Just throwing this out there, it really helps for people to join the channel as members because it gives me some income, which definitely becomes more justification to free up time to make this happen because it makes the time worthwhile. So I encourage people to buy memberships. I see that, Linda, you are a member. So I thank you for that. Thank you, Sandy, for being a member. Trey Bishop is here. What is the mission of this particular show? I think learning biblical Hebrew is an excellent focus. So to respond to that, and some other people also had some thoughts about that. The series that I just concluded on the book of Jonah, was my shot at a beginner biblical Hebrew series. Now, you could always continue. You must continue to study biblical texts, and by so doing, learning excuse me, continuing to learn and master the language. It needs to be done. However, I don't know that I'm going to dedicate specifically any more series in the near future to the topic of biblical Hebrew. We may study biblical texts and I will translate them, but it's not going to be with the purpose of teaching how to translate like the Jonah series was. So just to clarify that, if you want biblical Hebrew, go to my Jonah series. After that, I would say if you want to do more advanced stuff, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that I'm going to dedicate my channel for that. However, let me fix the lighting here. However, what I would recommend, if you can, is go to my website, which is linked in the video description. Go to my calendar. There's a link to my calendar, and make an appointment to study with me. I do charge for that. It's my time, but if you are serious about continuing, you could do it. You could pool your resources with a friend, get a few friends together, and each person can contribute towards 30 minutes or half an hour of study time, and we can do a private session. I think that's fair to if someone wants to study privately with me. But on the channel, we're gonna break out into other areas. So a little update about what I was thinking. Last week, we had a bunch of suggestions of what to do. My personal favorite is always Tanakh. So we spoke about doing the books of Trei Asar, the 12 minor prophets, which are short books we can get through relatively quickly. And another reason I like that, as I was saying to Cliff before the show, is that most of those books are like these poetic sermons, poetic prophetic sermons, and it's a very high level poetic Hebrew that's difficult to understand. It's difficult to translate, and it's difficult to interpret. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I feel like those are texts that people read and they don't know what they're reading. So that's something that would be worthwhile to elucidate on a channel like my own. Also, we spoke about doing the 5 Megillos, the 5 books that are called the 5 Scrolls, which are Esther, Song of Songs, Ruth, Ecclesiastes, and Lamentations. We already completed the book of Song of Songs. And I was saying to Cliff, Ruth is an easy read, relatively speaking. Esther is an easy read, relatively speaking. But when you get to Lamentations and Ecclesiastes, particularly Ecclesiastes, it's such a difficult text that would be something it would be, I think, very worthwhile to sink our teeth into and get to the bottom of it, what it's all about. So those are very tempting for me. Another suggestion was to do what's called Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, which is a Mishnah. It is a section of the oral law, but rather than dealing with laws, technical laws, it deals more with building character and virtue and right behaviors that are not governed by the law. And in particular, I mentioned that there is a push to study it with the commentary of Rabbeinu Yonah, who was a classic medieval Jewish commentator. And I confessed to Cliff before the show that though I have read Pirkei Avot numerous times, I never read it through with the commentary of Rabbeinu Yonah, and it's something that I very much want to do. And it would be self-serving for me to use the channel as an opportunity for me to study it myself and then teach it. So I think it's also an area that's worthwhile for everybody. And it also applies not only to Jews, but to Noachides, because it has to do with moral behavior and not specifically legal obligation. So that was something that I felt is very tempting, because remember, that's one of the things that I myself want to study. So I stand to benefit from that. There was some suggestion about learning the laws of Lashon Hara. Let me see. What other topics did we have? a different Musar Sefer, a different book of Jewish ethics, a classic Musar book. But again, what I said last week, and it still stands today, what I'm most excited to do is either teach Tanakh, or now over the course of the week, I started to lean more towards, you know what? I really want to study Rabbeinu Yonah's commentary on Pirkei Avot. Maybe I'll do that, and and I'll use that study to form the basis for the next class. And I sort of killed two birds with one stone. It's not like I'm studying on my own and I'm preparing a class. I'm studying, and whatever I'm studying, I'll share with you. And learn it together, so to speak. Messiah, I'm torn between, I think, a book of Tanakh, one of the ones that I mentioned earlier, or Pirkei Avot with Rabbeinu Yonah. Linda says, thank you for the clarification about the Divine Code series. We'll see where that goes. We have user, I know how to read. I think you should read, not for the Hebrew, but for actual learning. Yeah, of course. However, if you really want to understand what the Tanakh is saying, you have to examine it in the Hebrew. The English translation is only going to give you a very superficial feel for the text. You're missing so much that you just can't help but form a wrong impression of what it's saying. So it has to be studied in Hebrew. And I want to help with that by elucidating the Hebrew for the student. John Volkov says Wesley is wide awake. I don't know who Wesley is. Maybe you could elaborate. I have a bunch of comments here. God, wow, God is on my live stream. This is really an honor. God says Moses is Senon Mut. Archaeology needs to push this more. Okay, I know there's a number of different theories about who in the Egyptian history corresponds to the biblical personages, and there's controversy about it, and I'm not an expert on it, so I'm not going to comment on it. All I can tell you is the Bible's true, and those who interpret the Egyptian evidence against that are misinterpreting it, that's all. And those who interpret it to align with the Bible are doing a better job. And that's my personal bias. I know how to read, says the Slager edition of the Rambam, the 13 Principles of Faith, 8 and 9, the Torah. Maybe you could elaborate more what you mean about that, what you mean by that comment. Maybe we could get Wesley banned. He's really distracting. That's interesting. You're saying Wesley is a person who's like spamming the channel? Because I don't see his comments. They must be filtered for me. Let me see if I could get on the live stream a different way and see what you're seeing. Give me a second, okay? Let's see here. If there's an unruly commenter, I'll do what I can do. Here we go. Okay, I'm looking at the comments, and I don't see anyone named Wesley. It's not appearing for me, so I can't help you. Unfortunately, sorry. My apologies. But if there's somebody who has administrative privileges on my channel, a few people do, I think. Maybe if you see it, you could take care of it. John, I'll make you a moderator, John. Here, I'm making you a standard moderator, so you can put people in timeout, John. So whoever you want to put in a timeout, instead I've given you ultimate power. But I know you personally, so I trust you. You're not going to abuse your power. You're not the type. Sandy likes the idea of learning a text along with me. That goes to the Pirkei Avot with Rabbeinu Yonah. Kathy says, sounds wonderful, Rabbi Rafi, but I don't know what you're responding to, so be specific. Liz says, I hope you go with whichever you're most inspired to do. So like I said, I haven't decided. I do want to put out a survey on my channel, community page, and in the WhatsApp and in the email list so people can respond. And I'll try to use that feedback to temper my own choice. God says there are already holy things at play going on now. I'm sure that's the case, but I don't know if you're referring to something specific. John says he is cuckoo. Oh, cuckoo. Oh, is that what this someone also said? There was a crazy alert. Someone said there was a crazy alert earlier. I'm not seeing the crazy cuckoo. So, John, it's your job to take care of him. I have evidence on more things at play going on currently. Alrighty then. T Bishop says AI maybe. Maybe the cuckoo person could be a bot. Yeah, it could be a bot, but I don't see it. Sorry. God's been doing the Mandela effect predictions in The Simpsons, etc. for the upcoming rapture. Oh boy. Is this the cuckoo alert? Is this guy the cuckoo alert? He comes up for me as God, not as Wesley. So if this is the guy, he's not really bothering me yet, but if he gets on my nerves, we'll ban him. What he's disgracing Hashem and you. Still not sure who you're referring to. He has blocked you. I'm not sure. Oh, he blocked me from seeing his comments. Is that what it is? He said you're not a Jew. He said he believed Baal was Hashem. I don't care what he says. He can say whatever he wants. It doesn't make reality. I just ignore these people. There's too many crazies out there for me to care. Don't care. Also, the story of Adam and Eve was a metaphor for Adam's descent into alcoholism, alcohol being fool's knowledge. Well, you know what? There is what to say about that, actually. There are some sources to that effect. That what was the fruit in the Garden of Eden? Was it an apple? The answer is almost certainly was not an apple. Where does the apple come from? I have a whole class on that. In other words, there's no Jewish source that says it was an apple. But we find in the popular art that is created with the imagery of the Garden of Eden, there's an apple. But the fruit is not an apple, and the text doesn't specify what the fruit is. So there's a number of opinions in the oral tradition. One of which is a number of them that may surprise you what they are. One of which is the grape, and that the sin of the grape was the drunkenness, etc. And as a matter of fact, that's why Noah planted a grapevine, because he wanted to rectify the sin of Adam by testing himself with the same fruit that Adam had and overcoming the test. And yet he tests himself and he fails, which goes towards a principle that's very important in Judaism, that a person is forbidden from putting himself into a test. God chooses the time and place and the manner in which to test each individual, because he knows what specific test is appropriate for what person, what he can handle and what he can't handle. But an individual can estimate wrongly, overestimate, underestimate what he's capable of. And therefore, when he puts himself into a test, he invites only disaster. A human being may not put themselves into a temptation purposefully. If God says, you're up at bat, here's your test, and you gotta take your best swing at it. But we don't put ourselves in a test. So this whole theory about alcoholism, there is some source material in the oral tradition that would agree with that. John says God is a different user. Yeah, he didn't seem so offensive. I mean, he maybe has some cuckoo ideas too, but he is not saying anything offensive. None of us care. Was just hogging the chat and spamming so we couldn't see. Oh, I see. Oh, you don't care. Like I said, I don't care. Well, did you manage to ban him? I gave you the wrench. You have that wrench next to your name now. You clunk him with the wrench. Anthony S. Boris, grapes, right? That one of the options of what the fruit was a grape. I could talk about some of the other options and where the apple comes from. Kathy says the studies you mentioned, Rabbi, Minor Prophets and Esther, Song of Songs, etc. That's what I meant. Hour-long studies classes. I'll check out your website. Okay, so you should know, Kathy, if you're new here, that first of all, if you'd like to be a channel member, be much appreciated. But no obligation, of course. If someone would like to make a more meaningful donation to the channel, there are links in the video description. And if you'd like to purchase Judaica from artscroll.com, use my affiliate link, which I think is also in the video description, and I can earn a commission. But that's enough about me. So Kathy, what I was going to say is on the channel already, we have the entire book of Song of Songs, a 73-part series on all 8 chapters, verse by verse. It's in my opinion, it's an amazing study. And we did now a 33-part series on the book of Jonah, which was more focused on learning the language, the biblical language on a basic level. So whereas Song of Songs is more about interpreting the metaphor, the Jonah was more about the language. So those 2 books are available. I would like to go through more books. I just it's something I'm very passionate about. Okay. This guy again. I can give you specific evidence to do quick research and be like, wow, that's an interesting coincidence. You're more inclined to believe me if you're down. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure it's something that I want to take up the stream. So if you want to contact me privately, my email address is in the video description, rabbi@RabbiRafiMollot.com, and I think all my social medias are linked at my website, RabbiRafiMollot.com. So reach out. Didn't she make wine from grapes and gave it to Adam? That is one understanding of the story. Yeah. I knew you'd say overcome. Okay, I missed it. You gotta clue me in. Laughter emoji. I should get used to being laughed at. Only a 5-minute timeout? You're too generous. You gotta use that wrench. Oh, I finally got to the end of the comments. Okay, so while you guys can contribute more comments, I'll talk a little bit more about the forbidden fruit. So there's another opinion that it was wheat, and I know wheat is not a fruit, but even the word fruit could mean produce. And you're going to tell me it doesn't grow on a tree, so I can tell you it's a very good point. However, the Garden of Eden was a very unique place with very miraculous properties that were different from the state of the earth that we inhabit now. So if the oral tradition tells us that there was wheat that grew on a tree, so there was wheat that grew on a tree, even though we don't see that today. Another idea is that it was the fig, and evidence that it was the fig is brought from the fact that they took fig leaves and they made their loin cloths, whatever, out of their belts. It says chagoros. They made belts. Interesting idea. Those belts. Very interesting idea. Those belts. Why did they make belts? I don't know how they translate the word. It's chagorot in Hebrew. Chagura in Hebrew is a belt. They made chagorot. They made belts. What was the purpose of making a belt? And then when if it was to cover themselves up, and then God came and says they were embarrassed because they were naked. Well, were you covered up or you weren't covered up? Did the belts do anything, and did they not do anything? Lots of questions. Very mysterious episode. But in other words, that was also, like we said before, like Noah planted the grape to rectify the sin of Adam, and maybe Adam and Eve were attempting to rectify their own sin by using the same fruit they sinned with to be the fruit that they cover themselves with, as an act of teshuvah and rectification. We find many times in the Torah, in the Bible, the Tanakh, that people utilize the same medium that they use to sin, they utilize to return from sin, like Rachav and the scarlet thread in the window. She used to use the window and the rope to pull men in to have affairs with. This is in Joshua chapter 2, the harlot in Jericho. And then she uses that window to save the men and to return to God. So, etc., etc. So they use the fig to sin. They use the fig to repair the damage of the sin. And I have more to say, but I want to prepare for. I want to respond to some comments. When will the Jewish people realize that Donald Trump is the Antichrist and Elon Musk is the false prophet? Great question. I don't know. I don't know when Jews are going to realize that. Haven't realized it yet. So it's a good question. I don't know the answer. So let's assume I have some knowledge. What's your take on the idea that God doesn't really care for religion, but only had to prevent barbarians from committing bad acts? What's my take on it? I mean, would be I disagree with it. That's my take on it. I mean, I do think it's important to prevent barbarians from committing bad acts, but God did seem to give a very specific set of laws and consequences for following the law or not following the law. And if he wasn't serious about that, then he's not such an honest player. So, what kind of God is that, and why should I trust him? I've heard the tree itself may have been edible. Correct. And I think, Liz, you may have heard that from me because I think you followed the Shirim series where I do talk about that. Check out episode 10, class number 10. All right. I think I'm just going to. Donald Trump is the Antichrist. The Jewish people will accept him as their Messiah. This guy is loony. Yeah, we're going to. We're going to accept him as the Messiah. Let me think, because he's of the line of David, because he builds the temple and gathers the exiles. Why would we do that? Jews are so vocal about why they don't accept as the Messiah, the person that so many people in the world claim as the Messiah. We have very specific reasons from the text why he's disqualified from being the Messiah. Just like no one would ever dream in a million years that Donald Trump is a candidate. I mean, a normal person, not a crazy person. But what the Christians write, the far right, I'm not knocking Christians, by the way, but there's this certain element of sort of like wackadoodle, religious fanatic crazy. They have these websites with like prophetic news, Bible prophecies, and they make up all kinds of things. This is what Jews believe, and this is what's happening in Israel, and the secret Kabbalah of the rabbis are saying this, and it's like, no, they're not. What are you talking about? I'll give you an example. There's a fellow in Israel today. He's called the Yanuka. Okay, the Yanuka. Why is he called the Yanuka? Yanuka in Aramaic means young one, child, young one, Yanuka. And it comes from Hebrew, by the way. The word young in English, as you can hear in the Aramaic, Yanuka, comes from the Hebrew word yonek. Yonek means a nursing child. Yonek means someone who nurses. So a child in the Tanakh, sometimes called a yonek. That means a nursing child. That's where the English word young comes from, or Yanuka in Aramaic. Because why? Because the fellow, he's probably in his 30s now. He was a child prodigy. He's still a major genius. Someone who's just an outstanding Torah scholar and outstanding in refined character. He's a musical prodigy. He's a Torah prodigy. He's someone with just a beautiful personality. He was extremely open and embracing of people of all walks of life. And he's been able to unite Jews of different sectors in Israel like no one else. And he has huge gatherings of people who study his Torah. He has beautiful interpretations of Torah material that he has innovated from his own mind. That, again, that doesn't mean he's making up religion, but he's interpreting the text in a way that's very compelling and in a way that, hasn't been expressed before, using only traditional sources as his foundation. And the great rabbis of Israel have agreed that he is a person of very high caliber, both in scholarship and character. And nevertheless, I never heard one Jewish person ever suggest that he's the Messiah. And yet it's all over the Christian websites that the Yanuka is the Antichrist and he's the Jewish Messiah. No one ever said that. No, until I heard it from a Christian, I never heard it in my life. And I was like, what are you talking about? To be honest with you, I never even heard of the Yanuka until the crazies were asking me, do you believe the Yanuka is the Messiah? I'm like, the who? So I looked him up. He's a real person. But he's not the phenomenon that the crazy right-wing religious fanatic Christians are making him out, being very specific in the way I describe those people, because it's not all Christians. It's not even the majority of Christians by any means, but there is a group, there is an extremist group, and they say crazy things like this person, the stream is saying now, oh, Donald Trump is the Antichrist and Elon Musk is the false prophet and the Jews believe in them. Just, we have nothing to do with these things. We don't care about these things. Go away. Stop making up your own religion and superimposing it onto the Jewish people and going bad. This is like the not as bad, but it's along the lines of like the blood libels, Jews using blood to make matzahs. Like there never was such a thing. Anyway, so what? Oh, so many comments now. If someone wants to highlight a comment, they can buy a super chat comment, and it's a contribution to the channel, and I'll look at your comment first. Here that God even created Buddhism, but the Abrahamic teaching didn't stick. But God was like, oh well, whatever, and it worked for the people. Listen, you're entitled to believe whatever you want. I'm not here to disillusion you of these things. God is not a stoic, wrathful, almost robotic being as God had come off as in scriptures. Literally, fear works better than other tactics to keep people in check. Yeah, that's the Christian way of looking at the Old Testament God. He's some wrathful, like whatever you described over there. This is not the Jewish God. Sorry. Well, the set of laws are meant for specific groups of people at the time. Okay. I agree that there are specific sets of laws for specific people at specific times. That's true. But there are laws and they are specific. So there you have it. Timed them out again for 24 hours. Okay, it's good enough. It'll work for this live stream. Is there a book about reincarnation and the soul, especially a soul that didn't believe they are not supposed to be here? There's like some double negatives in that sentence, so it's confusing. If there is a book about reincarnation and the soul, and there may be, this would be a Kabbalistic work, because within Kabbalah, which is the Jewish mystical tradition, there is a teaching regarding reincarnation, so there's certainly literature on it. I personally don't study that, as I've mentioned before, and not because I'm against Kabbalah. There's some people like, Kabbalah is satanic, Kabbalah is fake, Kabbalah is pagan. I'm not one of those guys. I do accept that Kabbalah is part of the authentic oral tradition. However, I also accept that Kabbalah should only be studied by those who are extremely sagacious, have an incredible amount of scholarship under their belt, and are therefore ready for those teachings that without the proper prerequisites of knowledge, one will certainly misapprehend and will lead that person to heresy, because they won't understand the teachings and they'll think something untrue about the nature of God or the soul or eternity or the afterlife or any of those things that would endanger our spirituality. So until I judge myself to be someone of such a caliber, I do not study the Kabbalah. I do not feel that I am on that level, and I'm critical of those who do, meaning not of those who do who are on that level. Critical of those who study Kabbalah who should be not getting anywhere near it. And if you know people like that, watch out, because they're going to tell you, oh, the Kabbalah says, oh. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't care if they're reading it from a book. They don't know what the words mean. They may be reading a sentence that that translates grammatically into English, it doesn't mean what they think it means. It's like a code. It's written in a code. You have to know so much to understand what every single word of Kabbalah means. I'm studying now, not for the first time, but I'm reviewing the commentary of Ramban Nachmanides on the Torah, which I recommend. Art Scroll has a series in English of the Ramban's commentary, translated, of the entire 5 books of Moses. Highly recommended. Now, the Ramban's commentary includes both interpretations according to the plain meaning and Kabbalistic interpretations. However, in his introduction, he tells you if you are not studied in Kabbalah, you will not understand what I've written in the Kabbalistic portions of the commentary. So don't even try. It's there for those who are on that level. And so, every once in a while he throws in a Kabbalistic paragraph and he says, according to the Kabbalah, and I could read every word to you and translate every word into sentences. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's like gobbledygook. So in the Art Scroll English translation, they don't translate those paragraphs. And whenever it appears, they said the next paragraph delves into Kabbalistic concepts that are beyond the scope of this work, and we will not translate it. And that's the correct approach. That is the correct God-fearing approach to Kabbalah. You do not get near it unless you are on a certain level. And I promise you, if you have a YouTube tab open in front of you right now on a computer with an internet browser, you're not that person. And neither am I. Okay? So let's just leave it there, right? Because the people who are prepared to study Kabbalah, they're not on front of their computers. They're not. They got books in front of them, and they're like they have a nose in a book every waking hour. Okay, so not for the faint of heart. Yeah. So in answer to your question, maybe there is, but you shouldn't study it. Here's some more of this. For example, the 40-year stretch of the Jews were just a strategic move from God to let old paganists get old and die in case they bring back their old ways. You're entitled to your opinions. The United States of America. This is America. This is America. Okay? You're entitled to your opinion. I'm so glad that you have your own opinions. And I won't begrudge you for your opinions, nor will I take them away from you. Okay? Enjoy your beautiful opinions on the subject. John's a new member. Congratulations. Thank you, John. What? Spell it right. G-O-D. It's not paganist. Did not comprehend that comment. Also, ban on tattoos were because paganists would make themselves. It was more due to correlation with pagan traditions, although God still hates tattoos because the marking of the body is unholy. Keep going, buddy. Paul Wender. Hello, my friend. Gifted 1 Rabbi Rafi Mollot membership. And she caught it. Kathy caught the membership. I was thinking maybe someone will gift this lady a membership. If you're in the right place at the right time, you might end up a member. So thank you. She says, thank you, Paul. And he says, you're welcome. Or you're my honor, Baruch Hashem. I wouldn't qualify to read Kabbalah. I agree. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you this. Please forgive me. None of you watching me right now do. If you're on YouTube, you don't qualify to study Kabbalah. Because the people who qualify to study Kabbalah are not on YouTube. I promise. Look for Jewish mystical autobiographies if you want ideas on the subject, he says. Do whatever you want. It's America. Chaim Vital. I know what you meant there. Chaim Vital. Yes, the writings of Chaim Vital, where he records the teaching of his teacher, the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria. Don't read it. Don't read it. I'm telling you, don't read it. It's not for you. It's not for you. It'll only damage you. It'll only damage you. Again, I'm not knocking the Kabbalah. I revere the Kabbalah greatly. It is too powerful for someone who's not prepared for it. And it will damage you spiritually. Even the Kabbalah itself teaches about the breaking of the vessels. I mean, it's like lesson number 1 in Kabbalah is the breaking of the vessels, if you know what that is. The vessels were not prepared to receive God's light, and so they broke, sparks spread out, and they were covered in klipos, they call them in Hebrew, the external coverings, and we need to redeem the sparks by raising them up out of the. Do you know what any of that means? These are just words, but even just the concept of the breaking of the vessels is because they were not prepared to receive the divine light. So I'm telling you, you're not prepared to receive the divine light that's in the Kabbalah. You want to break your vessel? Come on, don't do it. Somebody gifted another membership. Paul, there he goes again. Too late. All right, do teshuvah. But by the way, I'm not trashing Judaism. I'm just giving context as to why. I know you're not trashing Judaism, by the way. I said I find your remarks not to be offensive. You've been very respectful, and I appreciate you being on the channel and sharing your thoughts. I just, your philosophy is contrary to Jewish traditional view on the matter, and we'll just leave it to that. We'll leave it at that. Oh, so I got to the end of the comments again. Look at me. So back to the fruit, right? So we said there's the grape, there's the wheat. I'm not sure why wheat is a suggestion. I haven't looked deeply into that. There's the fig I mentioned. And again, if you go to my Song of Songs, in class number 10, we talk about the citron. Many people don't know what a citron is. It's what's called in Hebrew an etrog or esrog, which it's a citrus fruit. It looks a lot like a lemon, except that it has a slightly different shape. It's like bumpier, and it has this very interesting tip. It grows upwards like this with a very ornate tip, and it's commanded by the Torah as one of the species that the Jews take up on the festival of Sukkot. We lift it together with the palm branch and the myrtle branches and the willow branches, and we wave them, etc. So in that class, I talk about the fact that the verse discusses the tapuach. The verse over there talks about a tree called the tapuach, and we wanted to identify what a tapuach is. So in modern Hebrew, tapuach is apple, but not likely that the biblical tapuach is what modern Hebrew calls a tapuach. And I offered evidence there, and I invite you to look at class number 10. I offered evidence there that the tapuach is the etrog. It is the etrog. Will you see over there from my lines of evidence for that? It is the citron. It is the citron. So that somehow, because the citron was identified in the biblical text as tapuach, and later the identity of the tapuach was forgotten and was superimposed onto this very common fruit called the apple. The apple entered the popular mind as the fruit of the sin when it was actually the citron and not the apple. But it was a tapuach, if that makes sense, according to an opinion within the oral tradition. So those are some insights. But I do recommend that class. Look at Shirim class number 10. Very interesting analysis of this whole subject. So God's back. He says, God put an Easter egg in the number 13 during the Trump assassination, the rally address. The shooter's home addressed even Richard Simmons, dying that day at 76, and 7 plus 6 is 13. Where are you going with this? What does that mean? What is the significance of that? And 9/11, there's a whole thing. It was flight 9/11, and those not what. There's also all these interesting maths. But I don't know that any of it adds up to anything. Fine. So any other thoughts, questions, comments?
My vote is Rabbeinu Yonah.
Oh, we have a vote for Rabbi. Okay, back to that. Yeah, so I said it doesn't have to be our topic tonight, but it's still an open discussion. If people want to opine on that, they could still do that. Hopefully by next week we'll have it all sorted out. The mic's open. Anybody has a question or a comment?
What is the Jewish perspective of numerology? It gets used a lot. You know, it's. I get the impression that it's not really. It's kind of. I struggle for the word. It's more of a curiosity. People enjoy talking about it. It's always of interest, but I've always wondered, like, what the traditional view of it is, because a lot of, you hear it a lot.
Yeah.
Even among, traditional circles, they enjoy talking about it. But I get the impression that it's always kind of, it's not in the spirit of it having any real, I could be wrong about this, but I get the impression it's not in the spirit of it having any real trenchancy, I guess. It's just, kind of an enjoyable activity to take place, that sometimes happens. What is your perspective on all of that?
Okay, here's my perspective. You're right and you're wrong. Meaning, well, let me just clarify the question. Jewish numerology, what's called gematria, which is usually simplified to mean that each Hebrew letter has a numerical value. So when you have words have a numerical value based on how you add up the letters. And so if two words have sort of like identical numerical value, there's some relationship between the two. And so people like to play a lot with these numbers to come up with clever permutations that they want to draw connections to things that it seems at best like a stretch and at worst like really twisted and perverted. So I'll say this. Like I said about Kabbalah, I do accept that there is a genuine, some people reject gematria and it's some made up thing. I do accept that there is a legitimate phenomenon called gematria. There is a legitimate significance to the numerology of letters. However, the significance is limited to what is significant and rules out what is insignificant. And I do think it's overused, and that insignificant gematrias are overused in a way that tries to put significance where there is none at best, and also is used in a perverse way to try to legitimate things that are totally counter to the Torah, to common sense, to logic, to truth. So therefore, I accept that there is a valid use of gematria, but that validity is within a limit. Where exactly that limit is, I'm not scholarly enough to tell you. But I know that generally speaking, there's this concept of you need a tradition for a gematria, meaning you can't like invent your own gematria. It's like, I discovered that and therefore you can't draw any conclusion from that. Whereas a gematria that can be found in a ancient, authentic source within the oral tradition is legitimate. And also within the Kabbalah, within those who really understand this discipline of how to use gematria, which is way more complex than people think. Like, it's just a numbers game. I could give a whole class on gematria. It's way more complex than that. But it does appear in the Tanakh. There's no question that gematria is in the Tanakh. I'll give an example of one of the more complex gematrias that's very overt in Tanakh. Very overt. People don't know this because they read translations. I believe it's in Yirmiyahu, in the book of Jeremiah, when he speaks to the Jewish people, he refers to Babylonia as Sheshach. He refers to Babylonia as Sheshach. Now, Bavel, Babylonian, he was spelled Bet Lamed. Bet Lamed. Sheshach is spelled Shin Chaf. Why does he refer to Bavel as Sheshach? So what people don't know is that one of the many ways of calculating gematria is using a code known as Atbash. There are so many of these. There's Atbash and there's Albam, which Atbash means as follows. The first letter of the Torah is Aleph. The last letter of the Torah is Taf. These two letters can be transposed with one another to reveal a hidden meaning. Bet is the second letter of the Torah. Shin is the second to last letter of the Torah, and they can be transposed with one another to reveal a hidden meaning. This is what's known as Atbash. At, Aleph, Taf. Aleph transposes with Taf. Bash, Bet, Shin. Bet transposes with a Shin. This is called Atbash. Sheshach in Atbash code is Bavel, because Shin is Bet. And the letter Chaf is the opposite. If you mirror the alphabet from Aleph and Taf at the ends and mirror it in. So Aleph mirrors Taf and Shin mirrors Bet and Gimel mirrors Resh and so on. So Lamed mirrors Chaf. So Sheshach is the Atbash of Bavel. So when Jeremiah refers to Bavel as Sheshach, that's why, because he's using Atbash. And this was a code that the Jews understood. Albam, so Atbash was also Albam. What's Albam? Is the Jewish alphabet the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. So there's 11 and 11. So one way of transposing the letters, I said, is Atbash, the first with the last, second with second to last, and so on. But in other ways, you take the first 11 and you take the last 11, and the first of the first 11 is Aleph, and the first of the last 11 is Lamed. So Aleph the first of the first half transposes with the first of the second half. So Aleph transposes with Lamed. And the second one, which is Bet, transposes with the second one of the second half, which is Mem. So that's Al-Bam, Aleph, Lamed, Bet, Mem. And you can also find codes like that. But there are many, there's gematria with what's called the Mispar HaKolel. When we add the number 1, for certain reasons I can't get into. Hold on, I'm getting a call, and I'm past the hour, so now I can take a phone call. Hello. Okay. Okay. Right. Because yeah. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. My time is not mine anymore. It belongs to my family now. So quick sum up is, yes, I do believe in gematria. Yes, I believe that it's overused and misused and twisted and perverted in a wrong way. But those who know the legitimate applications can be entrusted to communicate legitimate applications of the code or decoding using gematria methodology. But I'm not one of those people. But I could find traditional books where gematrias are used and say this is legit. Outside of that, I wouldn't trust any gematrias. Fine. I'm going to have to end the stream because I need to take care of an urgent family matter now.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, everybody have a great week, and maybe midweek we'll see you again for our exciting midweek stream. Have a good night. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.